Hello everybody and welcome back. It is Monday, July 12th, 2021, and you're listening to episode 120 of the Can I Say Something podcast. I'm your host and a recluse with a juicy caboose, Damien. Joining me today is...
Derrick McDuff.
Right into the show, bicycle@gmail.com, bicycle on Twitter, subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, rate and review it on Apple Podcasts, tell a friend, family member, or stranger. What's up, man? How you doing?
Doing well.
Nice.
How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. I watched a bunch of stuff this week. Finally, I believe we both caught up with Black Widow on Disney Plus this week. Correct?
I actually went out and saw it in a theater.
Oh, nice.
So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was pretty cool being back in a theater and seeing a big MCU movie.
Yeah. It felt like a big MCU movie. We'll get into it in a minute, but yeah, it's just tell me about that whole movie experience of actually going into a theater and having the sound and the people and everything.
It was like a trip. It was like being back in the before times, because it wasn't a crowded theater, so it was still kind of sparse, and I went with me and basically actually the people who I do my podcast with, and then Alan's girlfriend, and so like the four of us, we had just kind of like middle seats in like a huge theater, and it was just like so cool, just having like the sounds and effects and just everything just kind of all around you and just seeing everything up on the screen. It was like, oh man, this is what I've been missing out on. And when I mentioned before on the show, I had been back to the theater to see Cruella, and that was cool, but like it's like this like was a cinematic experience in a way that was not like this is a movie, like to be seen on the big screen.
Yes, exactly. That's what I felt like. I did watch it at home, but I did absolutely feel like this is a movie-ass movie. The shows have been trying to copy that a little bit with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Loki, I feel like it has gotten the closest to it. But yeah, there's something. There's a sheen. There's a magic secret ingredient to just the look and the feel of an MCU movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely something special.
Absolutely. So overall today, we'll be discussing our top 5 movies that we have seen this year so far, and giving a little bit more of our thoughts on Black Widow and Loki, episode 5, Journey into Mystery. But first, let's talk about Richard Donner. He passed away this week at the age of 90, I believe 91. So yeah, what is your favorite Richard Donner movie? You got Superman 2, Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, Scrooged, Goonies. What is your favorite Richard Donner film, you think?
I go back and forth between probably his cut of Superman 2, the original Snyder cut, the Richard Donner Superman cut, which is really solid, and Scrooged, which is just, it's such a good version of the Christmas Carol. Like, A Christmas Carol is just kind of like a really iconic story that you can do a lot of stuff with, and he just makes it absolutely hilarious, and a lot of it is thanks to just Bill Murray. Maverick was fun when I was a kid. I liked Maverick a lot. But I think I come down to Scrooge. Like, that's a movie I usually try and watch it every Christmas. It's so good, it's just got Bill Murray, Karen Allen, just all these great comedic actors. It's got to be Scrooge for me.
Yeah, nice. We just did a cage match this past Christmas of 2 Christmas movies. We did Scrooged and National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I'm not sure which one we decided was the better one, but yeah, that is a great film. Did a bunch of research for it. I guess Bill Murray and Richard Donner did not get along. I think Murray wanted to do, his Murray thing of, improvising and just going off script, and Richard Donner was not a fan of that at all. So I guess they did not get along during the filming of that, but yeah, just going back to I think I mentioned this before, but when I was a kid, I watched basically the same 12 movies over and over again. And Superman and Superman 2 were definitely one of those. I saw, Superman 3 and 4, the quality, massive drop off in those, but I remember watching those 4 over and over again, along with Jurassic Park, Independence Day, the horror movies I talked about. But yeah, Superman was definitely on that rotation. I think the first one was probably not on there as much, but I remember definitely seeing 2 a lot. It's interesting to go back and look and see what he actually changed. What was the the stuff that the studio wanted to take out, and what did Donner really want to leave in there. So be interesting to get to compare and contrast those things. So rest in peace, Richard Donner, one of the greats. I just saw Goonies last year for the first time, and that was a really great movie to watch. It's so crazy. I started watching and I was like, what the fuck, is this actually a kids movie? It's crazy that the movies that are, quote unquote for kids that came out in the 80s, and that movie starts off with a fake suicide in a jail cell. I was like, what the fuck? I had no idea.
So you saw it for the first time as an adult. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I didn't see it till I was an adult, and I was kind of like, I was like, oh, okay, I don't know if this is like a kid's movie or I just missed the boat or something. Yeah. It was not, up there for me in terms of Richard Donner films, but I'm interested to hear you say that.
Yeah, I was like, it's again, just watching these movies back then, now as an adult, you're like, man, these plots are just paper thin. There's just like a dude just trying to get the gold, and this old lady and these two guys are trying to get some gold from this abandoned like ship thing. Like, I don't even know what the hell's going on half the time, and what is even kids? Go ahead.
I made a drinking game for it. That was every time the Goonies say die, you have to take a
drink. That's awesome. Yeah. I love the nostalgia of like, I think I would have loved this as a kid, because I always have those fantasies of like, putting a actual working, what did he have? Like a rope going from his house to his friend's house. So you always have those fantasies of like, let's have like, a tin can and string, and let's have these private conversations between our houses, and we're going to set up all these cool, like, things in the woods you can play on, and just have this crazy like Peter Pan existence. That was always the thought as a kid.
It's very much like in the same category as like Hook. I feel like where it is kind of just like this iconic director making just kind of like a kids movie, but it's like, is this a kids movie? Like, there's a lot of weird dark stuff in this.
Yeah. Let's dive into a little bit to Black Widow. I have some thoughts here. I should open my apps here. So tell me overall, what did you think of Black Widow?
I was impressed, and it might just be, recency bias, because I did just see it, a couple days ago, obviously, because it just came out. But I saw, like the opening night, now they do the Thursday night previews instead of the midnight showings. So I saw it there, and, seeing it maybe it was just because I saw it like on the big screen like that. Like if I had rented it on Disney Plus, maybe I wouldn't have liked it as much, but I was very impressed. I liked it was like, but it was set, felt like it was set at the right time. It's like, okay, she's on the run. It's right between Civil War and Infinity War. I liked that it touched on stuff like human trafficking and kind of just like female rights. And it just kind of like, I saw this article and was like, oh, like Joss Whedon calls, like that, there was all that controversy where Joss Whedon was like, said that Scarlett Johansson or Black Widow was like a monster, like in the script because she couldn't have babies. And they kind of just like, were like they kind of like make not light of it, but it's just kind of like, yeah, this is how it is, Dad. Like they cut out her uterus, and she's just like, oh, I don't want to hear, like, all the kind of familial back and forth between, like, that kind of broken family. Like it gave me kind of vibes of The Americans, especially like that beginning scene, which that's one of my all-time favorite shows. But I thought overall, like, it was a really just solid, like not incredible, but a very solid spy thriller. That I think was because that just has like, all these MCU elements in it. Yeah. And, they did a good job of being like, okay, making the stakes feel important, but also you understand why, like, they were never mentioned before or after, because, this is set kind of in the middle of the MCU. So, there's some of the prequel-y stuff where it's like you see, like, oh, what she's like, she's gonna change her hair, she's gonna get the vest, but it didn't feel like forced, like when they're like, here, Han Solo, take this gun, it felt a little more natural. But yeah, just I felt like it for years they've been trying to kind of like make a really solid Jason Bourne, but like a female Jason Bourne, and they're kind of hit or miss, like I don't love Salt, but I feel like this one really hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, I agree with everything pretty much you said. Very reminiscent of recent films like Atomic Blonde. That Charlize Theron movie from a couple of years ago. Yeah, very good. I liked it a lot. The beginning gave me very Terrence Malick vibes. I was like, ooh, that's an interesting way to start a movie, sort of like Endgame started. I noticed that Rachel Weisz called Florence Pugh Little One at the beginning, and sort of like Thanos called Gamora. I was like, ooh, that's a weird callback for that. I want to start a what do you call it? Change.org petition to never have another Nirvana emo cover ever again in any movie. It's so bad. You hear Creep all the time and stuff like that. It's just stop with that. Stop.
It's usually in trailers, so it was like you get that in like a soft, slow version of like Nirvana or whatever, sad, song. But like, so this was actually in the film, and I was like, all right, it's made the jump from the trailers to the actual movie now.
Yeah. I like there was a part when she's first fighting, when Black Widow's first fighting, what's the guy's name, the enemy that they're fighting?
Taskmaster?
Yeah,
Taskmaster.
Yeah, and she does the knife drop catch combo. That thing never gets old for me when they did it in Game of Thrones and Last Jedi. I love that. Love it every time I see it. I love that they made fun of the 3-point pose, the superhero 3-point pose landing. She's like, you do this thing where you land and your legs go out and your hair flips back, and she's like, I don't know what that is. She's like, yeah, you're stupid. You look stupid. Why you do it? And then she does. She's like, oh, I don't like it. Ew.
That was so good.
It really was. It was a really funny movie. I thought David Harbour was really funny, and just like this.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah, very aloof but well-meaning dad of just like, you are the greatest fighters of all time. You have, deaths, and your ledger is so red, and I'm so proud of you. And they're just like, thanks, Dad, I guess. It's dripping with blood. Your ledger's dripping with blood. It's amazing. But yeah, I really, really like the action in this. Like you said, it was very Jason Bourne with a mix of, the big bombastic Bonds of recent years, but also, I think, what was she watching? She was watching Moonraker, and I guess people were saying it was very, very reminiscent of the end of that. I've seen all the Bond movies, but I, very vaguely remember that whatever scene they're referencing from Moonraker. So yeah, very, very good movie, I would say. Probably mid-range MCU. I feel like a lot of people are, it's weird to release it now, right? Because it took place many years ago. I think the perfect time to release this would have been right after Civil War. You got that big bombastic movie, just like you have with, Age of Ultron or, Infinity War, and you release Ant-Man, or you release whatever, and just, a nice palate cleanser, a nice, give us a reason to, mostly connect with her situation at that time. This is, in the real world, it's 5 years ago. 5 years have passed since the events of Civil War, but in the MCU, it's what, like 10 or 9 or whatever it is.
It would be 2023, I think is when. Yeah.
So a while. Yeah. So, that the release schedule obviously hurt a little bit, but yeah, overall, I really liked Black Widow. It was, again, return to the big bombastic stuff that I think they're trying for, but not quite reaching with the TV shows.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Yeah. So did you also check out Loki episode 5?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked this one. This was amazing. I love Richard E. Grant. He's one of these guys that I'm just now discovering. I watched, what was the Melissa McCarthy, Can You Ever Forgive Me? That movie.
Oh, I need to see that.
Yeah, it was very, very good. She's really great in that. She needs to stop making all these weird, crazy, out there, comedies with her husband. Just do more stuff like that.
Yeah.
Richard E. Grant is incredible. Just him just screaming, glorious purpose as he's about to get eaten by that giant thing. Oh, let me ask you.
Yeah, that was great.
Was that giant fog thing that thing's face remind you of anything like a Disney character from a cartoon? When you first saw it?
Nothing in particular.
It immediately reminded me of the Cave of Wonders Guardian thing that they had too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I could see that. Just like...
Yeah. The giant tiger head thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, just like the...
Yeah.
What is it? What does he say when like Aladdin comes up? He's like, I don't remember, but just he kind of growls and he's like, "Oh, the Cave of Wonder." Yeah. I could see that for sure.
The ruby in the rough. What was it called? The jewel in the rough.
Oh, bring me the diamond in the rough.
Yeah. So yeah, this was incredible. I love there's so many, like 1,000 different YouTube videos about just all of the different what do they call them? What's the thing where you put the things?
Series?
No, the
Easter eggs.
Easter eggs, yes. There's so many. Like every frame, there's like 1,000 of them. They like Frog Thor. You have, just so many just in the ground. Just like a quick
Thanos copter.
Yep.
And then the tower, not the Quinn Tower, but it's like the tower. It's got the other guy's name on it. I can't remember.
Kane the Conqueror's tower. It's supposed to be, I guess. But it's just so many references, and I love Loki's just walking around, just like, hold on, I have like 1,000 questions. Who are you? What's going on? Yeah, I find it very interesting that Sylvie has not mentioned Thor, especially anytime up to now, but especially now when you have all of the different Lokis that they've now run into, saying like, one of them killed Thor, one of them triggered their Nexus event by seeking out Thor because he survived, the encounter with Thanos by being a pile of rubble. It's just very interesting that of all the Lokis that we've seen so far, Sylvie has not mentioned Thor. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that they're saving it for the final episode. I think there's going to be some kind of Thor reveal. So, you will see her brother or maybe her sister, depending on, what they do, kind of come in that last episode. And I think it's going to be important. And it might be Chris Hemsworth or it might be somebody else, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. This whole series is very interesting to me because they're setting up, his whole story arc throughout the entire MCU is just like, you're the loser. You're the one that loses. And if you try to, break out of that, template that we set for you, we're gonna prune you. We're gonna put you away in this other realm where you can't ever do anything again. You can't ever, be better than yourself. You can't ever improve yourself. Like Richard E. Grant says, we're just losers, and we're meant to be losers forever. We're broken, and we can't be fixed. We're broken forever. That's a really interesting idea that they're exploring there. So, yep. Yeah.
No, I really like how they, kind of I was listening to another podcast where Joanna Robinson was talking about how they kind of had to, they essentially, Loki had kind of arced out, is the terminology she used, and like in the MCU, and so they brought him back to this point, where he was, still, he hadn't gone through all of the growth that he went through in the Dark World and Endgame and Infinity War, and, kind of had his full character arc, and now you see him starting to go through almost a parallel arc where, you see him going through a lot of the same character development, but, for different reasons, instead of going with Thor, he's with, Sylvie and all. It's really interesting to see that and to see that kind of growth happening once again from a different angle. Yeah,
absolutely. Do you think they're setting up Sylvie to be the next Loki?
That's a good question. I hadn't even thought of that they might be, but, cause, I think that she'll show up in the Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. I don't know that she's going to be like a major player, like how, I think they are setting some stuff up, like, with the post. I won't say exactly what happened, but there's some stuff that's setting post credits up for that in Black Widow that ties into one of the other shows. Yep. But I think that you will see kind of the implications of this last episode and of WandaVision will definitely play into Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, absolutely. The things they're setting up would probably be, Young Avengers with, Hawkeye's apprentice. You got, maybe Kid Loki or Lady Loki or, all of these different, Wanda's kids, all of these different younger versions of the Avengers because, you can't have
Florence Pugh,
of course. Yep, her, of course. Because, you have all of the actors are like, yeah, we've done this for 10 years and we've given you 10 years of our lives with this thing and we're going to cash out and we're going to let a next generation do it. So I think that's very exciting going forward.
Yeah, no, it's going to be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, when we get to our top 5 movies that we've seen this year, I don't know about you, but my list, I try to leave out a lot of the big stuff from this year. The movies that came out super late. So I was considering, putting stuff in there like the Oscar winners of, Nomadland, Minari, The Father, things that the big movies that came out this year that won a bunch of Oscars. They qualify obviously, but I wanted to, give love to some lesser known things, put out there things. So I have a mix of lighter fare versus heavy stuff. My other co-host Dion put, when we were doing last year's list, I was like, yeah, just, doesn't have to be all movies, doesn't have to be all serious stuff, doesn't have to be all Oscar contenders. You can drop some stuff in there too. And he had like, The Boys #1. We mixed TV shows and movies, so he's like, Boys #1. I loved it. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. If you don't want to put, the serious stuff in there, that's cool too. But yeah, I have a good mix of lighter stuff and heavy stuff. What are some of the stuff you set up for your list?
Yeah, so likewise, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna, because it's always kind of like fuzzy, like when stuff gets like a limited release in 2020, and then it gets like a wide release, or not really this year, but then it does kind of get that like major VOD release this year. So like stuff like The Father, I was like, if it was nominated or won an Oscar last year, I'd say that makes it kind of ineligible for my list in 2021 because it was a 2020 movie in that way. Even if I didn't have a chance to see it in 2020, I'm going to still, because it feels unfair to have like Nomadland go up against, a lot of stuff this year has been mostly streaming stuff. So I do have kind of a weird eclectic list where it is kind of like, I did, movies, but I didn't conclude. I went back and forth and like, oh, should I include some of the MCU shows? But I decided ultimately not to. But some of the stuff, it's like, okay, where's the line between movies and shows? Yeah, and it's kind of a blurry line. So I do have a weird mix of stuff too. I'll get more into it when it comes out. But yeah, mostly mostly the stuff that's come out so far this year has been streaming. Like I said, there's only been 2 things that I've seen in theaters because I'm just starting to go back to theaters. So,
Yeah, so my list, so I'm going to start with number 5, and it is Saint Maud. It is directed by Rose Glass, starring Morfydd Clark and Jennifer Ehle. I love horror movies. I love really good psychological thrillers. I love all the stuff that A24 has been putting out for the past few years, and this is another one from them. This is a movie about a nurse who becomes obsessed with, I'll just read the synopsis. It follows a pious nurse who becomes dangerously obsessed with saving the soul of her dying patient. And it just gets into that sort of stuff. And she gets, I think she might have some sort of mental illness where she's like seeing things and hearing voices. And this woman, I've never really seen her before, Morfydd Clark. Look up her IMDb real quick. But yeah, she's a fantastic actress. The things that I really love in actors is facial movements and expressing and conveying, complex emotions just in their facial movements, and she does that stuff really, really well in this movie. Again, just very, very quiet moments. It's quiet moments that really get under your skin. In her room, just the things she does in her room, how it looks, how it feels, just really deeply disturbing performance. And I will say, no spoilers for this movie, but this is a movie where the last frame, not the last 30 minutes or minute or 30 seconds, the last frame of this movie is incredible. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it where a movie ends like that. So highly recommend checking out Saint Maud.
Saint Maud. Was it released straight to VOD, or is it something that came out on a streaming service?
I believe it was released on VOD, and I think it may be available on Hulu right now.
Okay, yep. All right. I'll have to look into it then, because I've heard about it, but I didn't really know any details.
Yeah. Looks like it's on Prime Video right now. Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
What is your number 5?
Yeah. So my number 5, it's one we've talked about a little bit on this show before, and I'm feel like this might show up on your list higher up, but Luca is going to be my number 5. Nice. Like we've kind of said, that it is just kind of a really pleasant film, just kind of something that you can kind of put on and feel good for 30 minutes. It's just kind of nice, little short. It doesn't feel too like impactful or anything. It's just kind of the story about these kids. It does have kind of some of the themes that I really like on it that we didn't really touch on before, is that it feels like it is kind of like a metaphor for like coming out and just kind of like the LGBT community, and whether or not the director intended that or not, I think it's pretty clear there, because they literally have to come out of the water and pretend to be, and, people have had theories about like, Luca himself is bisexual, and then his friend Alberto I think his name is gay, and like that's kind of where that comes from. But I really think it was just a really just enjoyable film. It's on Disney Plus, so you can just go and watch it there. You don't have to pay any of the premium fees, which is nice, and it's just another good fare from Pixar. Yeah,
very nice, very well said. Yeah, it is. Again, it's one of those just light, breezy little movies you can put on. It's it's for kids, like you said, but it is absolutely for adults, and adults can dig into the themes that like you said, the director might not have intended to put in there, but they actually are there, of that theme of othering, and just being like, we're afraid of monsters, and that theme of using monsters and using people that don't look like you as allegories for LGBTQ people, or just immigrants or whatever. Yeah, really, really great film.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. So yeah, my number 4 was Luca. So that was you were correct that it is above there. Yep, that was my number 4. What is your number 4 thing you've seen this year?
So my number 4, and this is when I was like, another one I was like, oh, okay, does this count as a movie? This came out this year or not? Like, because it's Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I was thinking, I'm like, okay, is this a separate movie? Because you think of, there's always these director's cuts. You have like The Lord of the Rings, which adds, like Return of the King adds an hour, and you have, like we were just talking about the Dawn of Superman cut, and those feel like the same movie but with like a different cut, or like something like the Blade Runner, the final cut. It's a little washy, but this does, I think, feel like a separate movie. Like it's about 75% new, because it's 4 hours long, which is way too long, but then only about an hour of it is the original 2017 cut, and even a lot of that is very different. Like the coloring is completely different, and just kind of like it's the context of everything is different. There's about 5 extra endings. It's by no means like a perfect film. I know like the Snyder fans out there, it's one of those things. It's almost like Rick and Morty, where I'm like, I watch it, I'm like, yeah, I enjoy this, and then like I hear the fans, or I hear Zack Snyder himself, I'm like, you suck though, kind of. And then like the people are just like rabid, just like release the Snyder cut, we're gonna like kill your children, like that just makes me want to like it less. But then I watch it, I'm like, this is actually a pretty solid, enjoyable, just superhero film. You get Batman, you get Superman, you get all this kind of like good stuff. It feels like the Justice League that was promised. I would have probably liked a shorter version of it. It feels very overindulgent, but that's kind of the point. It's kind of just like, this is everything that, like the fanboys have wanted. And I had a fun time watching it, and it does feel like it is its own film, distinct from the 2017 cut.
Yeah. Did you listen to the podcast I did after I watched this?
No, I did not. So
I watched this with a commentary podcast called The Big Picture. They did a watch-along podcast with this. So this is the first time I watched the Justice League at all, or the extended cut, or the Snyder cut, and it was enjoyable. I had one earbud in, and listened with noise-canceling headphones over it. And this movie is wild. I feel so bad for DC fans. I feel bad for Zack Snyder. I feel bad for just people that are fans of want to see another cinematic universe. The MCU is obviously the most popular one, it's the most successful one, but I think we need more of that. I love that idea of having interconnected stories going on at the same time, big blockbuster versions of stories like that. I really wanted this to be good, and I really want the DCU EU to succeed, but unfortunately, I don't know what the future of it holds, but it doesn't look good so far. The future does not seem bright so far. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you bring up a good point when you talk about, like, it kind of, being a cinematic universe with this interconnected stuff and how we want to see that. And I do feel like this cut, you do get kind of like, it gives hints at the wider mythology of the DC universe. Because, the Marvel characters are very human, you relate to them a lot, where the DC characters, it's almost like a modern day mythology where it's like these gods that are like up above us, and that's, Snyder really heavily leans into that. And I think, he would not be a good Marvel director, but I think he's the perfect director for a film like this. And just seeing this kind of like, especially when I want to see just a whole movie about like the old days where it's like, they have that fight with Darkseid, and it's, you have the ancient Amazonians, and you get to see like the ancient Olympians, like you see Hercules and Zeus, and you say like a cameo from David Thewlis from who's playing Ares, and he plays Ares in Wonder Woman. You're like, oh, there he is and stuff, and it just so cool to see all that kind of just like, you know, like that world building that went on to kind of go in this movie, kind of put back into it. And I really liked it then more than the themes that Joss Whedon was like, there's a thing that it's fear and just whatever. Like, I really liked this version a lot better.
Yeah. It's so crazy to go back and look at the first cut, like certain scenes in the first one, he just like overlapped with this one. I guess there was something where Wonder Woman was doing something in the original cut, and he re-edited it so that she cuts off that guy's head. I forget what the villain of the movie was called that they kill at the end.
Steppenwolf.
Yeah, she cuts.
Right?
Yeah, she cuts off his head in this version, but she was doing something completely different in the other one. But he just like overlaid the animations on it. It was fucking crazy. You gotta watch that video. But yeah, it's wild, dude. I love the inclusion of that Flash scene where he saves his girlfriend, I guess, or the girl.
Iris West, I guess.
Iris West, yeah, exactly. I love that scene. I think that was one of the big ones that they left out of the theatrical version. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot here to like. I really do enjoy Zack Snyder's style. You know, I think the first 20-minute or the first, you know, opening credits of Watchmen is some of the most, you know, interesting, aesthetically pleasing, you know, things that he's done. I think he would be a really great, I think he is a really great, you know, music video director. I think Sucker Punch had, again, there's those really interesting visuals. All of his movies are very interesting to look at, but you start digging down into the plot and just like, that none of this makes any sense. None of it, man. Come on. Even especially the part where they're burying all of the cubes, and the Atlanteans are guarding it with this giant pyramid, and the Amazonians have put it underground or put it into this giant coliseum, and then man just puts it into the ground. It's just like 6 feet.
Right, I'm like, it's like it's like a 2-foot hole. I was like, you're not even gonna dig it a little deep. I was like, that's a really shallow hole that you're digging. I remember like saying that when I was watching the movie. Like, so there's some, you know, it's like a lot of Zack Snyder stuff. It's like this is pretty dumb, you know, but like you could definitely still like kind of like it's cool and it's dumb fun. You can kind of enjoy it. More than, I mean, I watched also his Army of the Dead movie, and I did not have as much fun with that one. This one was a lot more because it's kind of like bombastic and fun and just kind of, you know, like you enjoy the characters and it feels a lot less bleak.
Yeah. You know, it was a ride, man. It was I don't think I've ever seen a 4-hour movie. Well, no, that's not true. I watched Return of the King last year, the extended cut. So it was the second 4-hour movie I saw. But yeah, it's an experience. That's all I can say. I am glad I experienced it. I have that in my brain now. So yeah.
Yeah, it's not something I'm going to go back to. No. You know, the 4-hour cut of this. Yeah. But you know, I would go back to it before I'd go back to some other 4-hour movie. I would go back to it before I'd go back to, you know, Gone with the Wind or you know, something like that.
Yeah. Very audacious. I applaud your audacious, Mr. Snyder. Yeah. And
it's good to see him, you know, have his vision, you know, resolved after he went through like kind of the family tragedy and stuff and had to step away. So it's you know, it's like, okay, good. You know, I'm glad we got to kind of, and it is an interesting kind of like wait, like you can look at it as like, you can tell exactly what he did and what Whedon did. Whereas you watch something like, you know, Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, and you can't really tell like, well, okay, what was Peyton Reed and what was, what's his name? Wright?
Edgar Wright, yep.
Edgar Wright, thank you. I was going to say Joe Wright. I'm like, that's wrong. But yeah, so you can't really tell, but like in this, now you can distinctly like, all right, this was this director, this was this director, and it's really cool to kind of like have that viewpoint of it.
Yeah, exactly. So my number 3 is Another Round. It won Best International Feature at this year's Oscars. Stars directed by Thomas Vinterberg, stars Mad Mikkelsen, Magnus Milong, and Thomas Bo Larsen. Is about a group of school teachers who come across this theory that people function better on a little bit of alcohol. I think they said, you know, 0.2 whatever, you know, their blood alcohol level. They talked about how, you know, it was some scientists' theory that they picked up on, but also they talk about how Specifically, Churchill was always drunk, and look at what he did and stuff like that. I am deeply fascinated by movies like about con men, but also people, trying to live a quote unquote normal life while also hiding a secret, or trying to operate on two levels at once. And this is a version of that where, they're coming to school drunk, trying to teach drunk, trying to have relationships while drunk, and obviously trying to keep it somewhat under control. And no spoilers for this movie, but it does go off the rails quite a bit. And I enjoy, I don't quote unquote enjoy it, but I find it deeply fascinating, these stories about people that just absolutely destroy their lives and what they do afterwards. How do they pick up the pieces after they completely destroy their life? So yeah, I would highly recommend watching another round if you haven't seen it.
I've been meaning to get to it, and especially since they put it on Hulu.
Yeah. Because
I love Mads Mikkelsen. Like, I'm a really big fan of his, and I'm also like, I like a little bit of drinking.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a movie that's perfectly made for me. And when I did my year-end list last year with me and a couple the people from my podcast, it was on my friend Ariel's list. It was one of her top 5. Because it was one of those movies that kind of like, it's like, oh, was this a 2021 or a 2020 movie?
Yeah.
So it's been one, like, she recommended it to me, and I've been meaning to watch it since. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Yeah. But I do need to watch it.
Yeah. Mads Mikkelsen is such an interesting actor because he came out pretty much with the Bond stuff, and he was Hannibal in the show, and he was in what was the Rogue One. He was in that. Yeah. Just a fascinating guy. Love that guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. So what is your number 3 thing you've seen this year?
So my number 3, and I'm kind of cheating because it's not completely out yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
At the time we're recording this.
Yeah.
But it's last year when I did my top 5. I had it was like a video series that it was basically a movie split up into different parts, released online by SB Nation, which is they are kind of a sports YouTube channel / publication. So I had them on my list, and I mentioned that before, the history of the Seattle Mariners. Another team from SB Nation is right now doing one called Chosen, which is they do this series called Rewinder, where they kind of look at an iconic moment in sports history, and then they tell you what led up to this moment, all the different things that led up to this. It might be like a final shot in the end of a game, or it might be like something else. It's just kind of just like this one preserved perfect moment in history that everybody remembers, like Michael Jordan making that shot at the end of regulation or whatever. And this one is just kind of about the Cleveland Cavaliers winning their first title ever, and the city of Cleveland winning their first title, and I think it was like 46 years. And it's a feature-length movie. So far, parts 1 and 2 have been released. The first part has kind of been like a rewind on Kyrie Irving, but it also just kind of was like about the first part of the Cavs history. The second one was kind of a rewind a little bit on Kevin Love, but it was mostly on the history of the kind of 90s and how Michael Jordan just dominated the Cavs. And so the third part is going to be on LeBron James and him kind of coming to Cleveland, and them, going up against the 73-9 Warriors, and kind of just making the shot that sinks the series and just kind of clinches everything. So it's been really interesting. If you are a big sports fan like me, and if anybody liked The Last Dance, it's kind of like almost like a low budget version of that. So without any like talking heads or anything. So I've really been enjoying that. And I'm keeping it kind of here in the middle on the 3 spot for now, because reserving my judgments for the final part. But I've really enjoyed it so far.
Nice, that's awesome. I not a sports guy at all. I feel like if I was ever to become like a culture critic, I feel like most of the prominent people that do it these days, you have to have this myriad of interest. It has to be, you can't just be like, yeah, I'm just a movie guy, or I'm just a TV guy, or I'm just a music guy. You have to have eclectic interest in everything, especially sports. I think that's a lot of what the guys on the Ringer network do. They do a lot of movie stuff, but they always drop in a little bit of like, you watched that game last night, the game of the foots and the balls and whatever's, and I'm like, yeah, no, I didn't. But yeah, that's really cool, man. I was into, baseball for a long time before the Red Sox won in 2004. I watched pretty much every game with my dad. So yeah, I was baseball guy for a while there, but yeah, I just totally dropped off. I watch the Super Bowl, I'll watch NBA finals, I'll watch Olympics, but yeah, just unfortunately nothing. I've never really dipped my toe deeply into basketball. So, but yeah, that sounds super interesting.
Yeah, well, I think that, the really good sports documentaries and just good sports movies in general, and this one I would definitely include, kind of like, even if you're not a sports fan, will capture your attention. Like, I remember watching one of the 30 for 30s with my brother, and he doesn't care at all about sports, but he was just like, wow, like, I'm so invested in this, like, I really care about, like, Reggie Miller and what's going on with him right now and his personal story, because, that's kind of almost the more interesting things about sports is, all these kind of like deeper stories, like than just like the points on the board. It's just like, well, how did we get here? Like, do we think of LeBron as a hero or a villain or whatever it might be? And it's kind of like I don't know if you're familiar with Brooklyn Nine-Nine at all.
I haven't watched that, no.
Okay, well, there's like the Captain Holt. He's kind of the captain of the the precinct or whatever. He's just like, are you familiar with Moneyball? And he's just and he's like, oh, I didn't know you liked baseball. And he's like, I don't. It's a movie about statistical analysis. And just, kind of like. So that's that kind of whole thing where I think, if it is a really good narrative, even if you're not a sports person, you can really appreciate it.
Yeah, nice. So where can you watch that?
That's just on YouTube. So yeah, it's free on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
Chosen, it's called just like punch in Chosen SB Nation, and it should show up on parts 1 and 2, or part 3 is probably dropping sometime pretty soon, I think. So
nice, yeah. Very cool. My number 2 is Bo Burnham's Inside, and again, we're talking a lot about what is a movie these days, what is it's a feature film. But yeah, Bo Burnham's Inside is, if you don't know what it is, it's quote unquote comedy special. Again, like, what is it? It's I guess the easiest way to categorize it would be a comedy special, because there are jokes, there are, bits and skits and somewhat structured jokes in here. But yeah, I think this is I talked about this a couple weeks ago when I saw it. It is a masterpiece. It really is. It was just such a time capsule for the time that we were living in with 2020 and the pandemic. And I think it's really interesting that it is about that, but he never specifically says the word pandemic or or COVID or anything like that. But you can, if you go back and watch this in 20 years, be like, yeah, that he's in there because, there was a worldwide pandemic. So he had to stay in his room. He talks about it at the beginning of being like, yeah, I haven't been touring. I have such, anxiety and nervousness going up on stage. I stopped doing it for like 5-6 years, and I was ready to go back on the road in 2020. And then everything happened. And yeah, so just really genius thing. It touches on a lot of the things that I'm interested in right now with the Twitch streaming culture of, people watching people play games, people commenting on them playing games, the, internet culture of harassment, and how entertainers and content creators put things out and how they interact with their audience and how their content is perceived, and how talking about privilege and talking about how yes, I am a straight white man and I don't feel like I have anything valuable to add to the conversation about Black experience or police brutality or any of these things, but I want to so badly, and I am afraid to put these things out there, and I try to head this off and say that I am a straight white man. And it's just it's so intimate, it's so personal, it's so emotionally impactful. It's one of the most incredible things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it's another one of those things where it's just like I need to check it out. I have a lot of stuff that I've watched, and I'll get into this a little more, like, recently has been stuff for podcasts, so I haven't gotten to watch as many things that I've wanted to, just kind of outside of that realm, and this has been kind of like on my list of like, I really need to check this out, so I will probably check it out pretty soon. So I'm a really big fan of his, I think he's a really very insightful stand-up comic. I thought he was great in Promising Young Woman, so this is definitely on my list. Of things to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your number 2 thing of the year?
So my number 2 is one we had just kind of touched on earlier in the show, and that was Black Widow. And like I said, It might be a recency bias. It might be because I'm finally seeing something Marvel on the big screen again, but I just had so much fun with this movie. And, movies are meant to just kind of just be seen and, it does give you that like kind of action and fun stuff, but it also makes you think about the world in a deeper way while still being kind of just like a fun superhero film. So I feel like it's doing a lot of things really well. Not too much more to say other than what we said at the top, but Black Widow is, for now, I know there's going to be a lot more stuff that comes out, but it's definitely number 2 on the list for me.
Wow. All right. Nice. Before I get to my number 1, I just want to mention a couple also rants, a couple of honorable mentions. We talked about Promising Young Woman. You just mentioned that. That was one of my favorite things I saw this year. Pieces of a Woman is a really just soul-crushing movie about a woman losing her baby during pregnancy and the things that are involved there, the trauma of that, and also blaming her husband wanted to sue the midwife that helped deliver the baby, and so there's all the stuff going on with that, the conflict with that. It's really, really great performance by, I know it was Shia LaBeouf, which he was fine in. I like him sort of in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So pieces of,
I think he's a good naturalistic actor. Yeah.
Yeah. Vanessa Kirby played Martha.
Oh, she's great. I love her.
She's really, really great.
I didn't know she was in it.
Yeah. You also have Ellen Bernstein, and Benny Safdie, one of the Safdie brothers, is in that as an actor, so he's really good in that. So yeah, that was my number 6. Number 8 was The Assistant. It was this little indie movie that came out last year about a woman working in office culture, and she doesn't really experience sexual harassment herself, but it tangentially hears stories about it happening, and just the whole culture of that, and the way in which we don't really believe victims, and how hard it is to even sit down with somebody and be like, hey, can we just like head this off the pass? I think something might be happening. The guy just being like, there's like 200 people waiting behind you for this job, so no.
That scene is so sinister,
It
where
really
he's
is.
just like, yep, oh my god.
Yeah, the guy from...
He's just so evil and so bland at the same time.
Yeah, the guy from Succession, I forget what his name was, but yeah, he's so good in that scene. That I want to quickly mention, Greenland with Gerard Butler was a surprise movie that I saw this year. Surprisingly liked it very much. It's one of those asteroids about to hit Earth, and it's one long day into night. They have to escape. I think it was like LA or something, but get on a plane and escape before their entire town is destroyed by an asteroid. It was surprisingly good, very good.
I've heard that's what I've heard a lot of, like, people are like, oh, like, I usually don't like these movies, but this one was really solid.
Yeah, yep. Then lastly, Judas and the Black Messiah. I did want to mention one Oscar winner from this year because I thought it was so good. Fortunately, I can't think of anybody's name right now, but Daniel Kaluuya was amazing in that, obviously, and the rest of the cast was amazing. And it's one of those movies and one of those events that you just feel like, God damn, they should really teach this shit in history class, because it is so important, because you hear about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and there are so many other stories out there, just like Fred Hampton, who was one of the most prominent, important individuals in the civil rights in the 60s, and it's shocking to me and infuriating that people like him just are left out of the conversation. So, yeah, Judas and the Black Messiah was an incredible film. Lakeith Stanfield was amazing. Jesse Plemons, incredible. Dominique Fishback, yeah, the entire cast was amazing in that. So, that was my honorable mentions, and my number 1 is Mitchell's vs. the Machines. So this gets back to my thoughts at the beginning about how I wanted a mix of lighter fare and heavy stuff. I watched this twice, and it is so great. It has that energy and that feel of the Lego movies that I like so much, and the Into the Spider-Verse, just constant bam, 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 joke here, reference here, thing happening in the background. The dog was fucking hilarious, and the daughter and the son, and just there's so much stuff going on all the time. There's the kinetic energy of the car just going off the road, and the robots are funny, and just I love this movie so much. So that is my number 1, Mitchell vs. the Machine.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just watched that earlier today.
Nice.
So nice. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's definitely an honorable mention for me. Like, I like all the stuff you said. I think you really nailed it. I thought the kind of chemistry, all the actors were in it, had great chemistry with each other, and just kind of the voice performances were great. I love the very quirky art style that it's got that Lord Miller thing going on where it did feel kind of reminiscent of Into the Spider-Verse, especially when you get to the end and you're in the robot factory and it's got all those neon lights and stuff. So yeah, I really adored this movie.
Yeah, very good. What is your number one thing you've seen this year so far?
All right, so yeah, that was my honorable mention. I'll just give my two other honorable mentions before I go into my number one. Sure. And the other honorable mentions were Boss Level, which is
I love that movie.
Another one of those time loop movies. Yeah, I love Joe Callahan. Was it Carnahan? Joe Carnahan, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of his stuff is. I think he makes just really smart action. Like he makes the smartest dumb action films you'll ever see.
Oh yeah.
And Boss Level is just really taking that kind of simple Groundhog's Day concept and just doing it in a cool action movie. The other honorable mention that I have is Godzilla vs. Kong, which is just
nice.
It's a cool big monster movie.
Yep.
Like I feel like that is maybe the only other really cinematic universe that's worked a lot, and this is the first time they've actually crossed over.
Yep.
So I do hope they get some more MonsterVerse stuff. This was cool though, a little long, but I did enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But my number one is the Steven Soderbergh film No Sudden Move.
Oh, wow.
It's just a HBO Max original. Mm. But yeah, I've mentioned on this podcast before that I'm a really, really big Soderbergh fan. I think he's especially good when he's kind of doing like heisty type thriller movies. This is just one of those movies where you are just kind of really along for the ride and you're like, okay, this person's going over here and you're never really sure what's happening, who's working for who, and it's even a little hard to track sometimes, but you kind of get the gist of it, and it's like in that classic Soderbergh fashion, like things will be happening and characters are asking questions, and then he'll kind of have like an exposition scene at the end where it's like everything kind of clicks and makes sense, and you're like, oh, so that's, and it's kind of, it's like, oh, it's kind of telling you like, yeah, like you can try, but like the big guys are going to kind of push you down, and just, it's kind of like just kind of like, oh yeah, like, you really like don't trust like corporate America and stuff like that, and it's set in the 50s in Detroit, so that's a very important thing, and it's just about these kind of small town criminals who just kind of like stumble into something really big, and they just keep going higher and higher and higher up until they're at the end of the movie they're just kind of like at the like main guy, and you're never really sure who's working with who and who anybody can trust, and it's just got great performances across the board. People keep showing up, and you're like, oh, Ray Liotta's in this? Like, oh, this person is this? Oh, this person's in this? Like, consistently. And I was kind of like, oh, that's Brendan Fraser. I didn't even recognize him at first because it's been so long since I've seen him or anything. Yep. But yeah, I really can't recommend enough No Sudden Move, especially if you're a fan of, like, just really interesting thrillers, especially crime thrillers. Definitely check out No Sudden Move.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I really want to check this out. This is one of those where I always like, yes, I got to watch that. Then I turn on my TV and I'm like, wait, what was I going to watch? Shit, I forgot. I heard a clip from this movie. Don Cheadle was talking. Did he have like some sort of inflection, or do we think that's his voice from now on? Did he like get stuck in the Miles Davis voice? What is that?
Right. I felt like he's just kind of trying to do like an old time. This is an old time in Detroit guy.
Yeah.
Old time in Detroit. This is how we talk back in Detroit. In the 50s. Just I think that's what he was doing.
Yeah. There's so many people in this: David Harbour, Kieran Culkin, Julia Fox, Benicio del Toro, John Hamm. Just so many people. I'm definitely going to probably check this out after we're done here. And then, so that is our top 5 things that we've watched this year. I want to circle back because I had a couple things to talk about before we started the list. Just want to say real quick that they talked about how Black Widow, the director, Lexi Alexander, the director of Black Widow was Keith Shortland, and they were saying how a bunch of news outlets were saying that is the first solo female director of a Marvel film, and I guess Lexi Alexander in 2008 directed Punisher Warzone, which one of my favorite critics, what is it? I just had his name in my head and it completely escaped. David something Chen, I'll think of it, but he was talking about how it's an incredible movie. It looks incredible action, really great movie. I'll probably check that out pretty soon. And then you had Anna Boden and Ryan Fleck directing Captain Marvel, so that wasn't technically a solo female director, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. And so a couple things I've watched this week that I wanted to mention. Magic Mike, speaking of Soderbergh, I finally caught up with. Finally saw that the other day. I
love that movie.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Channing Tatum needs to do more stuff like that. Get away from the action stuff. Sort of like what's his name? Chris Pratt. should probably also do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep. And also checked out Boys in the Hood for the first time. It was on Netflix. I saw that the other day, so that was very good. And I rewatched Jurassic Park after we got done talking the other day, and it is it's still incredible. What did I say the other day? It was just it's so funny about the there was something. Oh, we were just talking about. So let me say real quick. I left work the other day because we were so short-handed, and there's just the whole hullabaloo about at work, but a bunch of drama. But I was just rewatching it in the context of that, and that part where Ned is talking to Hammond, and he's like, do you know anybody that can debug 2 million lines of code in about under 2 hours? Because if you do, I would love to meet them for the money you pay me. I know there's nobody else. And Hammond's like, I'm sorry about your financial distress, but it is really not my problem. It's just these. Well, everybody talks about the the movies about the hubris of man to try to control and contain in nature and how it's gonna life finds a way, but nobody really talks about the hubris of capitalism or the uncontrollable the machine of capitalism and how that's really what was driving his goal here. What Hammond was just trying to make this park and bring in all these investors and bring in as many people as possible. And you do have that part where the lawyer's like, we could charge $5,000 or $10,000 a ticket, whatever, people will pay it. And Hammond's like, well, I was thinking about average people coming into the park, and he's like, well, we'll have a coupon day or something. It's just like nobody ever really talks about the side of capitalism plays in the creation of that park. But yeah, still great, still amazing. Yep. So what have you watched this week?
So yeah, I've watched. I did watch a couple of movies that came out in 2020, like I just mentioned, Mitchell's versus the Machine, or 2021, like Mitchell's versus the Machines, and then Black Widow I saw this week. But some older stuff that I also got around to watching. So I'm a big Coachella fan. I watched this documentary called Coachella 20 Years in the Desert, because I'm actually going to be on another podcast talking about Coachella, so I was watching it, and it's interesting. It's kind of like, if you're a fan of Coachella, you'll like it. It's definitely not like the sports documentaries I'd mentioned earlier. It's more like, if you're only going to like this if you're a Coachella fan, because it's clearly a Coachella documentary made by the people who run Coachella about how great Coachella is. And so from that aspect, me being like somebody who's really interested in music festivals and stuff, I did enjoy it. Kind of as a glimpse into history. The one that I watched this week that I really, really enjoyed was the 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice, which I had never seen. Because I was talking to a friend at work, and she had kind of mentioned like that we were talking about Keira Knightley, and she mentioned that it's her favorite movie, and it's like, I've never seen it, and it was so good to just sit down and watch something not for a podcast. It just kind of like, okay, like I'm here, and I'm just like enjoying this, and I don't have to worry about like thinking about any reviews or anything. I could just sit and watch this like really just like, not quaint isn't the right word, but just kind of this nice romantic tale based on a Jane Austen thing from 2005, and it's just got all these great character actors in it. Just everybody playing Jane's sisters is great, and just kind of all the Donald Sutherland plays her dad, and the romantic lead. So I really just had a good time, and I love being kind of sucked into that Victorian world. So it's really just like kind of like all that costume porny stuff. I guess I don't know, pre-Victorian, I guess technically, but something that it did really well that I think that I do love, like movies like Emma and stuff like that, where you're like, wow, look at how immaculate this all looks.
Yeah.
And this was like that, but like real. This was like, Emma kind of feels like a little heightened reality, where it's everyone's kind of like, it's very much like, look at these amazing costumes, like Marie Antoinette, same kind of thing. Yeah. Whereas this is like, it's got all these costumes, but it looks like they are actually living in this like time period. They're a little bit dirty, they're a little bit grungy, and so I did enjoy that aspect. Great performances. I really bought the love story. I watched it actually with somebody who's a literature teacher, and she had read Jane Austen, and she'd seen the BBC version, but she'd never seen this version. And she was kind of like, okay, they changed this and this and this, but actually I see why they did. It all makes sense in movie context. So if you haven't seen 2005's Pride and Prejudice, I'd recommend watching it, because I really had a fun time with it. I'm glad I finally got to check it off my list.
Nice. We watched this last year with Emma back to back as another cage match we did. And speaking of Matthew McFadden, in The Assistant, he played Mr. Darcy in this. Lot of really young actresses, probably one of the first stuff they were in. Rosamund Pike, Jenna Malone, Carey Mulligan. I just caught up with Mudbound the other day. I love Carey Mulligan, one of my favorite actresses working today. I love this. I love this movie.
She's incredible.
She is really amazing. She was in this BBC 4-episode detective show a couple years ago called Collateral, which was really great. But yeah, like you said, I think it does reflect more of the time as more grounded version of a Jane Austen adaptation, more so than Emma. I really did enjoy Emma. I love what's her name?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah, I really love her. Really great movie overall. But yeah, you're right that the Pride and Prejudice was probably a more traditional adaptation of her work. But yeah, still really enjoyed it. Yeah. So then, have you been to Coachella? Just curious.
I've been 4 times.
4 times?
Last time I went was 2007. I went, 2013, 15, 16, and 17.
Wow. So what is...
then I go to a lot of other festivals too.
Oh, really? Wow. So
Not recently.
Yeah. What is... summarize, like, what is Coachella like? You just go there, drop some acid, and just do some craziness for a weekend?
It's pretty much just, like, you can... Like, you just kind of go and, like... I'm not like a really big druggy guy.
Yeah.
So I don't even really drink there, because even though I do like I said before, I like to drink. I just kind of like to go in and experience the music, because there's so much music going on so many different stages, and you can listen to anything you want to pretty much. Like, I remember there was a time when I was listening to, I had to split my time. I watched the Tovlo, and then I ran across the field and I caught Hans Zimmer playing with his whole orchestra on another stage.
Holy shit.
Then after that, I ran over and I got to catch the end of Lord, and just, and then I went over and saw Future Islands, and then I saw Joy Division, and just like all within like 3 hours of each other. And then it's also it's really cool, just like the setup. They've got all this really cool art installations and stuff. It just kind of like go and you meet people and just have a fun time. And it's just really an experience. There's nothing really else like it. You understand why people come from all over the world. 2017 was just an insanely good lineup. Like a lot of the undercards were like some of my favorites, like the Avalanches and stuff, all these smaller bands that not small, but like, not the top of the list, that I just love to go see. So if you're a fan of music, festivals are always really fun, and this is kind of like the #1 festival, at least in America.
Yeah, it's incredible. Wow. Hopefully we'll start getting more into that in the future. We'll get some people vaccinated and all that stuff. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So I think that will do it for this week's Can I Say Something? For Derrick McDuff, I've been Damien, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.